Loch Ness.
Yeah, right along the bottom. Wait, what do you got?
A Loch Ness monster.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Let's get settled here. 3, 2. Hello, hockey fans. Welcome back for another episode of Kings of the Rink. You're hanging out right now with 3 of our writers from sports-kings.com/Around the Rink. My name is Joe. I'll be your host again today. And as always, I've got 2 fine gentlemen hosting with me today. We have the Loch Ness Monster down there in South Carolina. Michael, how you doing today?
You know how it is. It's just great. But hey, shout out to you, Mr. Joe Ray. I know we did this the last time about, I don't know how long ago it was we all saw each other, but I don't know if a lot of our viewers know. Mr. Joe Ray here is now Mr. Joe College. So congratulations to you, Joe, on graduating college. I couldn't be more happy for you, my friend. And, you know, more power to you in your endeavors, man. Good job. You know, that's always huge.
Still got to take a summer class to officially finish my degree next week, but I made it through. Struggle is real. Kelvin, how you doing today, man? Let's keep this rolling.
Good, man. Congrats again, man. Have fun.
Thanks.
Enjoy it.
The real world sucks.
Yeah, the real world does suck.
Yeah, it's certainly been pretty boring so far, but that's why I'm glad we got podcasts, you know? Give me
Thank God for the love of hockey.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the love of hockey. So, obviously, we're into conference finals right now. Got a couple of great series going on, I think, and whoever makes it to the Stanley Cup out of the Rangers, Canadiens, Kings, and Blackhawks, we're gonna be in for really awesome NHL finals. Before we get to that, though, we're going to talk real quick because there's been a lot of front office hires while the playoffs have been going on. Probably the biggest news that came out yesterday was the Vancouver Canucks finding their successor to Mike Gillis, their former general manager, who couldn't put the team over the top. They made it to the Stanley Cups once against Boston. But now they actually pulled their general manager from the Bruins organization. Their former assistant general manager, Jim Benning, is now the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks. This is the first big move that Trevor Linden's made as team president, you know, former Canucks legend, team captain. You know, we'll start with Michael on this one. Mike, what do you think of this move? Do you think Benning's a good hire to get Vancouver back on track?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I thought it was a great move on Vancouver's part, and good move, Trevor Linden. Shout out to you for, you know, doing that. I was kind of, you know, I kind of expected a great like Trevor Linden to recognize that, hey, this team needs to get back on track. This team needs to get a little bit bigger. This team needs to get stronger. They need to get a little bit faster because they're starting to age. And Jim Benning was always a top candidate on anybody's list. I mean, he was arguably, if you had a list of like top 5 GM prospects, Jim Benning was probably 1 or 2 on a lot of people's list. Benning himself was also a Vancouver Canuck. I think if I remember correctly, he was drafted 6th overall by the Maple Leafs in '81, and then ended up playing like the rest of his career in Vancouver. So he knows the Vancouver organization. I'm expecting Trevor Linden to start calling Cliff Roning here in the next 5 or 10 days, though. I mean, come on, you cannot have Trevor Linden without Cliffy Roning. I mean, it's almost impossible. But the first thing that Jim Benning needs to do is he needs to find a coach that is going to fit a style of play that Jim Benning wants to do. If they're going to build this team like they built, like he helped build Boston, they need a coach that's going to, you know, bring that smash mouth style of play back to Vancouver. And they've kind of got some guys that could probably do that. I mean, you know, you've got a young Zach Kassian who, you know, he was 8th overall for a reason, obviously. But he's starting to be one of more of those third-line checking guys. Is he going to be able to be that top 6 guy that everybody thought he was going to be, or is he going to be, you know, reverted back down? But I think I don't know, I think it's kind of funny, though, that Mike Gillis got rid of Alain Vigneault. And Alain Vigneault is in the Eastern Conference Final right now and is 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup. And Mike Gillis is playing golf with John Tortorella, throwing back, you know, shots of brown liquor and Yukon Jack since they're Canadian, wondering what the hell went wrong. But, again, good move for Trevor Linden. I'm still waiting for Cliff Roning as an assistant general manager or something like that, but we'll see.
Now, Kelvin, we'll swing this over to you because I definitely want to talk about what the Canucks have to do to get back to being a successful team. Obviously, they've got the Sedins locked up for 4 more years, so they're set on that front. But it really doesn't seem that they have that much going at forward. And now in goal, they don't have Roberto Luongo or Corey Schneider after looking like that was a position of strength just a couple of years ago. So what do you think the direction is that Benning could take here?
First off, he's going to bring in a coach, and I read a tweet yesterday saying that Barry Trotz is the leading candidate to take over that position. And going back, they all have history together. Trotz, Benning, and Linden all have a history together at some sort of capacity, I guess. So first off, he's got to bring in a coach and figure out what system that coach wants to bring in. If he wants to build it like the Boston team, then he brings in a coach that fits the Boston build. If not, he brings in another coach. But I think Barry Trotz gets the position and holds it. But the first thing they got to do is fix their goaltending issue. You had probably the top 2 of the top 5 goalies in the league the last 2 years, and you traded them both away for garbage. But I won't say garbage. They got pretty decent for Corey Snyder. But
I was about to say, Bo Horvat's nasty.
Horvat. Yeah.
But they also were trying to trade Luongo, and then they keep Luongo and get rid of Snyder, which made no sense to me at the time. And then you trade Luongo and you go with Eddie Lack in goal, which he's not terrible, but he can't. I don't think he can handle the pressure of Vancouver and everything that the fans do up there. Like, they're striving and dying for a cup, and I don't think Eddie Lack's the answer in goal when you had Corey Snyder, who was supposed to be the future of the goaltending situation in Vancouver, and you just trade him to New Jersey.
Yeah, definitely. I think Vancouver definitely could do well with a coach like Trotz, who's going to build a team around strong goaltending and strong defense. But I think the goaltending would be a real issue in Vancouver for at least the next few years or so. I think you look at 2 Swedes, Eddie Lack and Jakob Markstrom. Both those guys are long, athletic goaltenders, but neither of them have really played well in consistent stretches at all. You look at Markstrom back when he was in Florida. Super small market. Couldn't really develop any consistent play here, and now he goes to Vancouver. You add all that pressure, and you think he's going to be able to be successful there. Maybe one of those guys pans out to be a starter, but I don't know if they have the organization's goalie of the future right there right now. Barry Trotz could be an awesome coach. Actually, he got fired by Nashville, who replaced him with Peter Laviolette. Kind of a total flip in terms of strategy, but Laviolette, see what you guys think here real quick. But I think Laviolette's an awesome hire for Nashville. I think their team that's got a lot of offensive talent between Michael Del Zotto is a guy that could still develop a little bit more. Philip Forsberg is a prospect that they got from Washington in the Martin Erat deal.
Don't remind me.
But Colin Wilson's another young guy too, power forward that I think could turn out well. And you look at what Laviolette did with Claude Giroux and when Philadelphia had Richards and Carter back in the day, and I think there's a lot of promise here. Let's get your guys' take. Start with Michael again.
Well, when I first heard about the whole Laviolette going to Nashville, my first thought was I was kind of confused because it's a complete shift. Like you said, it's a complete shift in style from what Barry Trotz played. Barry Trotz is a defense-oriented first kind of guy, and Peter Laviolette is, I don't want to say, he goes so far as he's like a Bruce Boudreau or a, Adam Oates, or he's a run and gun type of guy, but he definitely puts an emphasis on offense, which is something that Nashville desperately needs, because it always seemed like they were one of the lowest scoring teams that were still a few games away from making the playoffs. Let's not forget this was a almost playoff team, which is weird to think because they were like 13th or 14th in the league at one point in time. But what kind of freaked me out the most about Laviolette going to Nashville was the fact that he was just, I guess, ran out of Philadelphia the way that he was 3 games into the season. It kind of was one of those like, okay, well, what's going on here? Why was he ran out so quickly? Did he lose a locker room? Were there, uncertainties between him and Claude Giroux, Scotty Hart, or were they not getting along? Like, what's the back? I didn't really hear anything about a backstory behind his firing. It kind of worked out for them, though. You bring in a guy like Craig Berube, who obviously, of course, was not only a Flyers great, but a great enforcer, and he turns that team around. Is Laviolette going to be able to do the same thing in Nashville? Personally, I still think that they need some work there. They're still kind of here. Laviolette kind of brings them to here, but they're not anywhere close to being here. And they need to get there sometime soon because, Nashville's a small market. It's a growing market, but it's still a small market.
Yeah, and as we've seen with the Western Conference of these playoffs, it takes a lot to be a contender because
Yeah.
these teams are all stacked. They've all got speed, they've got grit, they've got size,
And
they've got leadership,
and
and
you
Nashville
lose
really
Ryan
just doesn't
Suter to
have.
Minnesota, who is now a contender. So I mean, you obviously
Yeah,
you try to replace him with Michael Del Zotto, it works, but at the same time, there's not enough there. I mean, Philip Forsberg is a great prospect, but that's the thing. He's a prospect, injury prone last season. I think he got rushed into that lineup too much. He didn't fit the system. So we'll see how that works out. If he can develop into what everybody thought he was going to be, including the people in Washington and everybody else that, at TSN, the NHL Network had him, in the top 5 and he dropped to 11th. He was basically a steal. If he develops into what everybody thinks that he's going to with Laviolette, it's going to be a great move. It'll make George McPhee look like a stupid asshole like we always thought he was going to do. But, we'll get into that here in a minute.
but hey, man, Michael Latta, prospect.
I
Well,
love Michael Latta. I've been a huge Michael Latta fan for about 2 years now, so
I actually want to
fan
talk
of
a
that
little
trade
bit.
in that sense.
Not to switch gears too quick here, but I do want to talk for a little bit here about the Pittsburgh Penguins because after that playoff series loss, things are certainly changing up a lot. Ray Sherrow's been fired, and for some reason Dan Bilsma has been retained so far, but his fate will be left up to the new GM, which doesn't exactly sound very promising. Kelvin, we'll start with you on this one, man. What kind of direction do you think the Pens are going to be going in here with general manager?
From what I've been reading, starting yesterday, is that they have been in contact with Pierre Maguire to become the new GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins, which I find kind of ironic and hilarious at the same time because I can't stand him on commentary on NBC, so I'm kind of hoping he takes it just so I don't have to hear him in between the glass. But the direction they need to take is they need to find a goaltender who can perform in the postseason. I mean, Andre Fleury looks like just a goaltender for the regular season, but his demons, ever since winning the Stanley Cup in the postseason, have not eluded him whatsoever. I mean, he had 2 great games where he had 2 straight shutouts, but after that it was back to 5-hole and can score anywhere you wanted on him, and they got to fix that. And they're getting older in a sense on defense. They need to get a couple younger guys on their defensive side that can stay healthy, and and Sidney Crosby, he was a no-show this year in the postseason, so it's not like they're that bad. Just Sidney Crosby never showed up. I think he only had like 3 assists and 1 goal in the postseason. So they're not that far off. They just need to get a goaltender who could perform in the postseason and probably 1 or 2 defensive players that can stay healthy.
Yes, certainly. I think if Pierre Maguire did end up as the Pittsburgh Penguins general manager, they'd never have any issues forgetting where any guy played junior hockey or where he grew up or any of that stuff. They had been looking into Sidney Crosby's agent, actually, Pat Brisson, but he decided that he wanted to stay on the agent side of things, and I don't blame him.
He makes more money there.
But I see the logic there, that they certainly want to give Sidney Crosby all the tools that he needs to be successful. Obviously, he's had some chemistry with Chris Kunitz, and I think that's going to keep going for a long time. But Pascal Dupuis was injured for a lot this year. They could probably use a better player than Pascal Dupuis on that top line right wing. And Lee Stempniak wasn't that guy, and I don't think they have that guy on the roster now. Michael, what do you think about what do you think the direction is going to be here for Pittsburgh going forward?
Well, first off, if I'm Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Washington Capitals, I would have been already on the phone with Ray Shero the minute he got fired, saying, "Hey, guess what? We have a job opening. It's yours. Take it." I mean, if what the guy did in Pittsburgh is nothing short of spectacular, you cannot discredit that, despite the fact that I really hate the Penguins, although, Jaromir Jagr is the sole reason why I watch hockey. But, so at some point in time, I get why it happened. You make a move by signing Chris Letang to an exorbitant amount of money for an exorbitant amount of years, and he goes and has a stroke. That was unfortunate. But like you mentioned, Joe, Lee Stempniak was not the guy this year. Pascal Dupuis was hurt. Marcel Gottsch wasn't the guy. Marcel Gottsch hasn't been the guy for years. I like Marcel Gottsch. He's a cool guy, a great player, but he's never been the guy that everybody thought he was going to be after the Joe Thornton trade. you bring in a guy, you steal James Neal from Dallas for Alex Goligoski. That was genius. I mean, that was complete and total genius.
Yeah. One of the best trades of the decade, for sure.
He kind of along. I don't want to. In no way am I ever going to compare Ray Shero to George McPhee, because Ray Shero is far better than George McPhee. But he kind of had some George McPhee moments, like when George McPhee drafted Joe Finley in the late first round of like 2009 or something, and the guy can't skate. I mean, Happy Gilmore skates better than Joe Finley can, and Happy Gilmore's fake.
I saw Joe Finley play for Buffalo. That's pretty much the truth.
Yeah, he was awful. It was kind of like when Tampa Bay drafted Vladimir Mihalik. Like shortly after that, around that same time, everybody was looking for that big Zdeno Chara-like guy, and he couldn't skate. They can't skate. But to piggyback on what Kelvin was saying about getting younger on the defense, Ole Mata is the future of Pittsburgh defense. That guy is outstanding. They've got a young guy coming in that they got from in the Jordan Staal trade, which is another move that Shero probably shouldn't have done, because they kind of lacked that third line center or that second line center to put. You either put Malkin on the wing with Crosby, or you put Malkin in center and you needed a third line guy. Brandon Sutter's not that. He wasn't that guy. He's close, but he's not really there yet. So they needed that. They tried to look for that with Marcel Gotch and everything like that. But Derek Pouliot, when Derek Pouliot comes back from being injured, he's going to be out. I think he just had surgery, along with Olivetta. But when he comes back, he's going to be another offensive weapon from the point. Fantastic guy in Portland. Did very well teaming with Seth Jones, who of course is in Nashville. Great player. They've got some other pieces down in Wilkes-Barre who are, have a shot to develop. They had Joe Morrow, got rid of him. There's a guy Reed McNeil he's pretty good. I don't know if he's, he could be a spot guy every once in a while to come up, but a younger guy, he could do. He can make some damage in the NHL, kind of like almost like a Robert Bortuzzo, but he's not as physical as Bortuzzo. He's not as tall as Bortuzzo, but he's kind of along the same lines. You're like, oh yeah, that's that Robert Bortuzzo could definitely be like a bottom six type of guy. So Shero, whoever's the general manager next, Shero has built a team. It's not going to be that hard to get them back on track.
Yeah, definitely. I read an interview from the Pittsburgh Tribune with the team president of the Pittsburgh Penguins. His name is eluding me right now, and Mario Lemieux. And it sounded like their top issue that Ray Shero didn't address this year is that they wanted more grit and character with their team. I think that's something they definitely lacked, and that they did not pick up in Lee Stempniak and Marcel Gotch.
But they had Chuck Kobasu wasting away in the AHL.
Yeah, Chuck Kobasu. But from what I gathered, that makes them sound like they're going to be a perfect candidate to pursue Steve Ott this offseason in free agency. And I think that would be right along the lines of the perfect free agent pickup for Pittsburgh.
That would be huge, but Steve Ott's already said he wants to go back to Buffalo, so it's going to be hard to lure him back away from Buffalo.
Yeah,
even though he's going to a Stanley Cup contender right away.
Steve Ott wants a cup. I think that's obviously he loves Buffalo, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him move back here. I mean, a lot of former Sabres players have as well.
Well, he still lives there. He still has his house there.
Ott needs a cup, though. I think he'll end up going to a team like Pittsburgh, or maybe he sticks in St. Louis, maybe not. St. Louis has a lot of good players, but they need to retool that team and figure out how to get out of the first round.
Yeah, especially with the reports of Ryan Miller not coming back.
Ryan Miller is officially not coming back. He's officially coming back.
Ryan Miller is gone. You've got Jonas Hiller hitting the market. Maybe Jonas Hiller ends up in.
No, they've signed their two goalies. They've signed them both.
Yeah, but is Brian Elliott really the guy? Come on, Brian Elliott. You totally screwed up Ben Bishop, and now you're totally killing the development of Jake Allen. What are you doing?
Nah, you know what? Yeah, St. Louis is not going to sign another goalie. I don't think. If they were going to sign another goalie, I think they would keep Miller. But Jake Allen's a stud, and they're going to let him go, and they're going to let him pair up with Elliott. And I really feel bad for guys like Ryan Miller, Jonas Hiller, because now we see Yaroslav Halak go to the Islanders, steal out their starting spot. He's got 4 years at $4.5 million per. There just really aren't that many starting gigs out there right now, because Hiller's probably not going back to Anaheim, I would assume.
No.
They've got John Gibson, I thought, played pretty well in the playoffs, and they've also got
Frederick Anderson. If he wasn't hurt, good young. He's a great young goaltender.
So I think maybe Vancouver with Benning. Maybe he goes after
Vancouver's
the
a
goalie.
shot.
Hey,
Maybe he goes after
Captain
Hiller.
America, Ryan Miller. We could always use you in
Yeah.
DC.
Yeah, DC.
He's going to the West Coast. He already said he's going west. He'll go to San Jose.
Yeah. Miller definitely wants to be out west.
He wants the West
but
Coast
it's
to
a
be with
matter
his
of
wife.
San Jose with Anthony Niemi, really?
Yeah, Niemi had an awesome year this year. I've seen reports as well that Anaheim.
Don't be shocked if you see Sam in. Don't be shocked if you see him in San Jose.
I actually saw a report yesterday that Anaheim and San Jose both said they're out, but Vancouver wouldn't surprise me. Minnesota wouldn't surprise me to go be closer to his hometown of Michigan.
Yeah, and to be there with Darcy Kemper.
Yeah.
Although
it'd be
Ilya
like
Brizgalov did very well for them this year, so I mean.
Yeah. So let's swing this into the playoffs right now so we can keep this moving. Rangers Montreal last night, pretty crazy game. 2-1 going up into the final minute. Rangers pull Lundqvist. They get a goal to go in off the skate of Alexei Emelin to force overtime, but then they get to the extra period real quick. First few minutes, Alex Galchenyuk right on the back door, 3-2 Montreal, and they bring the series back to 2-1. And now, where does this go for me? I thought, well, first off, I want to get your guys' takes on the Brandon Prust hit from last night and Dan Carcillo getting thrown out, because that whole first 5 minutes or so was just such a cluster that I had no idea what the heck was going on with the refs. We'll start with Kelvin or Michael, whoever wants to chime in first.
Go ahead, Kelvin. I've gone first too many times. It's time for you to talk.
Well, I was at the bar, so I didn't have the commentary going on, and I came home for overtime. And so I got to see in between overtime, they were showing the whole misconduct of a referee thing, and I sat there and I look at it, and I'm like, he barely touches him, but at the same time, he threatened the guy to hit him. And by league rule, a game misconduct for hitting a referee is an automatic 3-game suspension. So is the NHL going to go down that road and suspend him for 3 games? I don't know. I personally wouldn't, because it wasn't that bad. And he missed basically the whole game anyway after that. But by league rule, he has to be suspended for 3 games for this. So if he is, then that's not a big blow to the Rangers, but it's a blow and enough to where I think with the way Montreal played last night that they get right back in the series. They could tie it up 2-2 if what's the guy's name? He's played in 11 games in goal, like Tuoskalo or however you say his name.
Dustin Tokarski.
If he plays like he did last night, there's your Corey Price replacement right there, and this remakes it a series. Like when Corey Price went down after Game 1, I thought the series was over. I thought it was going to be a quick 4-game sweep. I thought it was over. I was like, Montreal has no chance whatsoever. And then this kid comes out last night and makes 35 saves standing on his head in MSG in his first playoff start, and everybody wrote them off. They're like, ESPN was like, Michael Wilbon was like, it'd be a great story, but I just don't see it happening. Tony Kornheiser was like, there's no way in hell this guy's winning a game in MSG, the biggest stage of his life. There's no way he's going in there winning a game. He makes 35 saves standing on his head, and the one goal was just a lucky goal off a guy's skate getting passed in front of the net. So they easily could have won that game in regulation if it wasn't for that skate throwing a puck at the net. Buffalo, take an example, throw pucks at the net, stuff happens. But the hit was obviously late. There definitely should have been a penalty on that hit, and it just wasn't called. But it's like Barry Melrose said on SportsCenter after the game was over. When you have a team that's dead in the water, they come out and they hunt. And that's exactly what Montreal did last night. They hunted, and they proved that they were the more desperate team and that they wanted the game more than the Rangers did, which is shocking considering that they were in MSG.
Yeah, definitely. I think Montreal has a very, very deep team right now. And, I mean, obviously, any team that you can put Thomas Vanek and Danny Briere on your fourth line, you've got tons of offensive talent, and I certainly wouldn't count Montreal out by any means, but what it's going to come down to for them to get back in this series is Dustin Tokarski. And maybe Michael, unfortunately, can give us some expert analysis, having seen how Yaroslav Halak emerged in the postseason against the Capitals back in 2010, 2009, I want to say. 2010 right there. Yep, had it right the first time. So, what do you think, man? You think Tokarski could be the guy here?
Well, first off, I'll tell you who's kicking his own ass right now is Steve Yzerman, and I'll tell you why.
Oh,
February.
yeah.
Let's backtrack. February 13th, 2013. Steve Yzerman trades Dustin Tokarski to the Montreal Canadiens for Cedric Desjardins. Now, Dustin Tokarski was just coming off of Calder Cup. Definitely was on the verge of becoming an NHL goaltender. And in fact, if you go into our ATR archives, look up my reaction piece to this, I was livid. I mean, this was the worst. I thought it was one of the worst trades that Steve Yzerman could ever make, and probably will ever make as general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Because at the time, here was a guy who was on the verge of being an NHL, at least an NHL backup. Young guy, proven NHL goaltender, athletic, can make all the saves. He was stuck behind, I think it was Yaroslav Yanis, or Yaroslav Yanis, who at one time was a pick, a prospect, and then Riku Helenius comes in, and of course Riku Helenius was like the first rounder that was supposed to be the franchise in Tampa Bay. He obviously didn't pan out, left, and then came back. Was named like AHL goaltender of the month a few times, and they moved Tokarski because they had Riku Helenius. Well, now what's Tampa Bay doing? They're sitting at home playing golf without a Ben Bishop because you had Anders Lindback in goal, and you put your faith in Krzysztof Guzlevskis, which obviously didn't pan out for you guys. And Dustin Tokarski was there on the bench laughing at you.
That's a totally first down.
It was great. So
with
the same
Ben Bishop,
time,
that's a totally different first down.
Yeah, exactly. But again, if you had Dustin Tokarski to back up Ben Bishop, it's still a totally different first round. So, I mean, at some point in time, I'm starting to think I only got to watch the overtime period last night because I was doing Diamond Kings last night, which, by the way, plug on that. Go watch that. It's a great show. So I only got to see highlights of the Prust hit. It should have been a penalty. I think the Carcillo deal was a little petty, but league rules are league rules. He's probably going to have to be suspended. I don't think the Rangers are going to miss him because they've got JT Miller. Miller's going to add speed to that lineup. They're going to come back in Game 4. Tokarski has to stand on his head for this thing to work out. It's possible that he does it. Again, it's a whole new series. The series is now interesting. We'll see what happens. But, if it's going to be anything, that Tokarski's win was as big a momentum shift as Jake Muzzin's third period goal that started a four. Well, it was actually a
Five.
four. Well, no, it was a four straight goal, but it was a 6-goal run. But Muzzin's goal really set the whole thing off. I kind of wrote LA off when Chicago went up 2-0. I kind of put the TV on mute. I was watching. I was like, and then Carter scores. I'm like, oh, okay, life. Doughty scores. All right, hey, we're tied back in this. And then Muzzin scores right after. I was like, okay, this is it. This is the momentum roll that LA needed. And that's a series again going. It's 1-1 going back to LA. LA has a huge shot at winning this now.
I know. We've already kind of segued now into the Western Conference, and we'll keep this going. But I want to start this off because I want to say right now that the LA Kings are, without a doubt, the best team left in the playoffs.
Yes.
I'm going to say here's why. I don't know how well versed you guys are, some of our viewers are in the hockey analytics world. If the Toronto Maple Leafs are the poster boy for everything bad with analytics, like people said, look at their Corsi relatives and all that stuff. They said Toronto Maple Leafs were going to fall off at the start of the year. The LA Kings are the poster boy for everything good. And the way to play defense right now in the NHL is to have good offense and have good puck possession. And the LA Kings, I think, do that better than any other team in the NHL. I think I was really amazed, down 2-0 after Ben Smith's goal, how poised Los Angeles was. And they didn't freak out at all. They were just kind of, hey guys, hang on, we'll get this. Keep getting the puck in the net, keep getting possession. They get that first goal in Game 2 off Justin Williams' skate. Just throwing the puck in the net. Good things happen. Same as happened a couple times last night in Game 3 with the Rangers in Montreal. And then I thought that really kickstarted everything. Then you get 2 power plays off of 2 penalties on the Doughty and Muzzin goals. 2, in my opinion, a little touchy penalties. But you get those 2 goals, and then you get Carter getting the 4th one, I believe. And
Carter got a hat trick. Carter had a hat trick in that game.
Jeff Carter had a hat trick in that third period. Yeah.
A natural.
But definitely, I think going back to Los Angeles, I think the Kings have this series pretty much in a stranglehold. We'll swing this one over to Kelvin. What do you think, man? You think the Blackhawks could pull it out, or think LA's got this?
Well, I watched until it was 2-0. I thought the game was over, and I had to go to bed because I had to be up early for work the next day. So I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning. I was like, 6-2. What happened? And I rewatched the third period, and Chicago had so many chances to put that game 3-0. They just completely missed wide open nets. Like 3 times, I believe they hit the crossbar. And if they would have made it 3-0, I think that series would be completely different. But we're talking about a completely different series now, where LA's right back in it, and I'm actually starting to believe in them again, like I did when they won the Stanley Cup the last time. But I will go on the record and say I had Chicago winning this series in 6, I believe I said on Diamond Kings when we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm still going to say Chicago wins it in 6, but I think it's going to be a much harder 6 than I previously thought.
Yeah, definitely going in now. Los Angeles basically has the home court advantage in terms of what basically boils down to a best-of-5 series. Michael, what do you think? It sounds like you're on the LA bandwagon, but do you think they got this?
No, yeah, I've been on the LA bandwagon ever since I saw Anze Kopitar touch a puck. I mean, the guy's he's brought back a resurgence of. I mean, I've always loved the game. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I could probably eat, sleep, breathe, shower hockey 24/7. But watching Kopitar, it brought back a sense. The first time I saw Jaromir Jagr touch a puck, I was sitting watching Flyers Pens with my dad when I was like 3 years old. And I distinctly remember just watching Jagr go like one end to the other, like coast to coast with the thing. And I think he scored on Ron Hextall because I was just like, oh my God, like 3 years old. I still remember that. And I kind of had the same thing with Ovechkin and more recently with Kopitar. It made me want to watch the game even more than I already do. And you can ask my mom. That's saying a hell of a lot. But if anything, the thing that I'm kind of, concerned about now is what is what is LA staff going to do when it comes to July? Alec Martinez, I'm pretty sure is, if not an unrestricted free agent, he's a restricted free agent, as is Jake Muzzin. You've got Derek Forbort coming up, their first-round pick who played 4 years, from I think it was 2008, I think it was. He played 4 years at North Dakota. Had a really good year in Manchester this past season, despite the fact that they got eliminated in the first round, but that's due to goaltending. You've got Braden McNabb still there, who they acquired from Buffalo. Big, heavy shot. There's going to be somebody is going to be, is going to have to go. Willie Mitchell's like 35, 36 years old. He's probably not coming back. Matt Green, kind of, getting up there in age as well. And you've got, you've got to watch Marian Gaborik. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's obviously been a huge, huge reason why this Kings team is where they are right now. I mean, if LA wins the West, he is automatically Conn Smythe contender, like automatically Conn Smythe frontrunner. Right now, he's tied right now with me for Pat. It's like him and Patrick Kane are Conn Smythe like frontrunners right now, and that's just for the Western Conference. That's assuming that either the Rangers or the Canadians don't win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, you know what I actually wanted to say in that vein, because I was saying this to myself at the end of Game 2. The number of times that I heard Patrick Kane's name, I could probably count on one hand. I don't know what happened to him and Marian Hossa, but it seemed like the only guys I really noticed from Chicago in that Game 2 was the fourth line. Yeah, Jonathan Taves, too. The top line and the bottom line. Brandon Bullock, Marcus Kruger, and Ben Smith. Smith eventually got moved up into the top 6.
I think what's kind of hurt Chicago is they're missing. Who is it? Is it Brandon Saad or Andrew Shaw that's always injured this playoff?
Andrew Shaw's out. Yeah.
Yeah, they're missing, and that's a big. Everybody's like, oh, it's Andrew Shaw. No, Andrew Shaw brings a hell of a lot to that Chicago team, and a hell of a lot to Joe Quenneville's system. And when you miss a guy like that, it's a hole. I mean, you can't really replace what Andrew Shaw does in that team. I mean, you can try to with like a Marcus Kruger or something like that, but you can't. I mean, they're obviously missing Andrew Shaw because he's another guy that's going to, he's going to play against that top six. He's going to give you,
Exactly.
15 to 20 goals every once in a while. You're missing that.
And remembering Shaw's iconic moment from Game 6 of last Stanley Cup Finals where he takes a shot to the face in the first period, goes get stitches, comes back, plays the rest of the game, and then lifts up the Stanley Cup friggin' bleeding all over his face.
Yeah.
That's kind of the heart and soul guy that you need. And I think the Kings still have that right now in the form of, like Dustin Brown, their captain. They've got that with Jarrett.
Ithaca, New York.
What's that?
And
Dustin Brown's from Ithaca, New York.
Ithaca.
And you've got, the young guys, Tanner Pearson, Tyler Toffoli.
Yeah, those two playing with Jeff Carter have both been very good.
Oh, my God, ridiculous. It's a lot of people are starting to wonder, where's Mike Richards? Like, where is Mike Richards at? This is
Mike
not
Richards is playing with, like, Dwight King and Trevor Lewis in the bottom six. But that just goes to show you how deep some of these teams are. And looking back now, I'm kind of kicking myself saying, obviously, LA and Chicago are the two deepest teams in the Western and probably in the NHL right now outside of Boston. I mean, you look at teams like San Jose, you look at Anaheim, you look at St. Louis. Really the only things that they have is that they haven't gotten it done in the postseason. And I think all three of those teams would do well to acquire some guys that have done so, maybe guys from, those LA, Chicago, Boston, Pittsburgh organizations.
Well, Anaheim had it. They just traded to Washington.
Yeah, Dustin Penner.
Anyone on Twitter right now?
Nope.
No.
Damn it.
A little breaking news from Kelvin?
I just got a thing on my phone that said something about NHL player safety tweeted something, and Real McGuire just retweeted it. I'm trying to figure out what it said.
Oh,
Probably
Brandon
something.
Prost is having a phone hearing Friday afternoon for his hit on Derek Stepan.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
breaking news.
Breaking news right here on Sports Kings about suspensions. But going back to that Prost hit, who was it? Stepan kind of poked the puck up the boards and was going away from the play, but it was a good second and a half after he got rid of the puck and Prost comes up right behind him. I honestly couldn't tell if it was his shoulder first with the hit, absolutely, but it was late as all hell, and it was very, very close as to whether that was into the head or into the chest. And Prost, like we were talking with, Andrew Shaw, he's kind of a heart and soul guy for Montreal. And I think if they lose him, that's a lot bigger loss than Dan Carcillo being lost by the Rangers if he gets suspended too. That's the other thing.
By league rule, he should be suspended 3 games. So
definitely. So that's gonna just about wrap it up here. I think that's a good note to leave on that breaking news for us. You can follow us along right here at ATR Sports Kings. That's our Twitter handle. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We love
Joe,
our podcast.
Right quick, Joe, if I may, if nobody has been able to watch the replays of the MasterCard Memorial Cup they're showing on NHL Network, you guys are seriously missing out. Great players that are going to be in the NHL for years to come. And some of these 6th-round guys are, showing out. It's fantastic hockey. It's people who say minor league or, major junior hockey doesn't matter, you're seriously mistaken.
Yeah, definitely. Quick shout-out to NBCSN because they're playing Memorial Cup games. They're playing IIHF games from overseas right now over at Belarus.
Storm killing it right now. Killing it.
Guelph Storm. Oh, yeah.
Guelph is killing it.
Shout out to the big Russian, too, Nikita Zadorov.
Yeah, he's been absent.
Nights.
He was absent.
Yeah. Any
Ovi, get well soon, big guy.
Yes, Ovi.
Yes, absolutely.
He got hurt in the World Cup over there.
Yeah, but it's nothing. They're saying it's nothing serious. So
shout out to Alexander Ovechkin. Any other parting shots? I think we're good.
Shout out to Anton Ebo.
From
NHL draft coming up. I might be there. I might be sneaking down the NHL draft down in Philly.
Now.
Might be sneaking down there.
Philadelphia.
We'll talk about that next time because there's a lot of things to talk about.
We'll get NHL draft going next time. We'll be just about ready for the Stanley Cup. I'm going to close this one off with a paper toss because that's awesome.
Okay, Tony Reale.
Thanks for
Kelvin
tuning in,
is
guys.
the Woody Page to my Jay Mariotti.
Oh, yeah. Now all we need is Bomani Jones, and we're good to go. We'll get a
Panky Rank
fourth guy in here.
We'll get Aaron in here sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to
He
get
kinda
on
looks
it on
like Kalani
Saturday.
Jones.
Shout out to Around the Rink site manager Aaron Moraes, who's on that full-time grind. Can't be with us in the mornings during the weekdays. From Kings of the Rink right here, I'm Joe, Michael, Kelvin. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. SK Nation.